Hi, welcome to the Streets of NIL podcast. This is your host, Katie Wu. In today's episode, I'm joined by Jack Betts, the king of D3 NIL, who played football and graduated this past December at Amherst College. He's an incoming master's student studying sport management at SMU and the founder of the Make Your Own Legacy Academy. Jack, welcome to the pod.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me on.
First, I just want to frame your story, get to know you a little bit better as an athlete. What's your sports story? What sports did you play growing up? What sports do you play now?
I was a very active young man, growing up. I played almost every single sport there is out there. I'd say the ones that I really focused in on and honed in on, obviously football, which I played at the next level, Division III. Soccer, basketball, and baseball, I say were some of my big ones. And also track and field. Soccer, basketball, and football, I'd say were probably my big three. And going into high school, the only ones that I really played were football and basketball. Basketball was actually my first love. I'd say to this day in another life, I was going to be a Division I hooper if I had hit my growth spurt at the right time. But unfortunately, everything happens for a reason. I quit basketball my sophomore year, hit my growth spurt my junior year of high school. And the rest is history. I went on to play college football at Amherst College, a Division III school, in the NESCAC conference way up there in Massachusetts. So a little bit of a change of scenery from Texas. But that's good for the soul, and it's good for everybody to sort of get out of their comfort zone. Certainly, if you're going away to college somewhere like I did. And right now, I'm actually retired. I'm going to be pursuing my master's at SMU beginning this fall. I have an extra year of eligibility because of COVID. I'm part of that COVID group. So I do have a fifth year that I'm able to use, but right now I'm just focusing on weightlifting, functional fitness, and getting a run in here and there just to kind of stay in shape.
Can you talk about why you chose Amherst and why D3 football, and maybe a little bit about why you decided to retire now?
The way that I made it up to Amherst is a really funny story. I decided my sophomore year, once I quit basketball, I wanted to pursue football and I wanted to play at the next level, sophomore year of high school, of course. Um, and I began talking to my parents, and I'm like, look, I've lived in the South my entire life. I know that there's more this country has to offer, and I know that there's a lot of elite academic institutions way up there in the Northeast, and I just gravitated towards the Northeast for some unknown reason. The way I made it to Amherst was I went to my going into my senior year. I went to a bunch of the summer football camp clinic type deals. Obviously, I went to Amherst, but I also went to Dartmouth, Princeton, and a couple others, and it came down to making a decision between Amherst and Dartmouth. Those two were the final two because I am of Cherokee heritage, so my Native American heritage, my Native American background is extremely important to me. And I wanted to go somewhere that I could continue to pursue those types of studies. I majored in English with a sub-focus in Native American studies. So Amherst and Dartmouth really offered the best opportunity to continue that. And when it came down to it, I think Amherst offered the best balance between academics and athletics. Given it is a Division III school, obviously athletics is going to take up a lot of your time, but they really do put the priority on academics. And the reality is, I'm not going to be playing professionally. I'm not going to be entering the NFL draft anytime soon. I can tell you that. So I wanted to make sure that wherever I did end up going to college was going to set me up effectively for the next 40 years. Hear that 4 years for 40-year plan type thing. I'm sure you're hearing it right now as you begin to prepare for college. But I didn't really well, I kind of guess I did decide to retire. I mean, my 4 years of eligibility came to a close. I graduated in December. Had a lot of injuries on the tail end of my career, unfortunately, that may have ended some seasons in some ways that I didn't necessarily expect them to. But I think you learn a lot from that. I certainly learned a lot about endurance and pushing through adversity. But I think that the way that if this is the end of my football career, I'm happy the way that it came to a close, and I wouldn't change much about it. So,
Yeah, and can you talk a little bit about why SMU, why pursue a master's at SMU, specifically going home, and what is it that you're studying there?
so when I began thinking about grad school last spring, last summer, I'd say, I knew that I wanted to go somewhere that had an elite sport management program. And the number one program in the nation is Columbia, and the number one program in Texas is SMU. So those are my top two. I was going to apply to both of them, but I decided to apply to SMU first. And it really was just the thought process. I think it's time for me to come back home. I'm not sure New York City's for me. I'm not sure I could survive in New York City. But the thing about SMU, I could literally take this football that I have right here and throw it, and it would land on SMU's campus. So that's just a little perspective about how close I am to the SMU campus. And I think being home, I know my parents are certainly going to appreciate me being home, but Dallas is the type of market that I think I want to succeed in. Pursuing a master's in sport management is the next step in my career pursuits. And I think it's really going to equip me with the type of tools and the type of knowledge that I need in order to take that next step in my professional endeavors. As I mentioned, I was an English and Native American Studies major. So during my time at Amherst, I didn't do a lot of marketing work. I didn't do a lot of case studies. I didn't do a lot of things looking at the current state of sports business. So just taking what I learned at Amherst and then applying it to what I'm going to be taking from my time at SMU. It's only going to be a 1-year program. I think that I'm going to have a very formidable toolkit of things in my book bag. So I'm super excited for my time at SMU. I'm taking a statistics class this summer. It's an online class, so it shouldn't be that bad. But all my real studies begin this fall, and I'm super excited about it.
Seems really exciting. I'm excited for you. Yeah, so let's move on to NIL. Can we talk a little bit about just why you decided to start pursuing NIL? Was it intimidating as a D3 athlete, knowing that like when you think of NIL, you think of like the Power 5 quarterback. So kind of like what was that mindset shift for you to make you feel confident in pursuing NIL yourself?
I'm not sure I would say there was a mindset shift. Kind of thinking back to when an NIL legislation was approved that summer of 2021, I can actually tell you exactly where I was. I was on family vacation in Aspen, Colorado, just at the dinner table with my folks, and my phone starts blowing up. ESPN, Bleacher Report, all these news avenues saying NIL legislation approved. Athletes can now capitalize off their name, image, and likeness. They can be spokespersons. And I'm sitting there geeked. I'm sitting there super excited because I had so many brands in mind and so many prospective partners in mind. I'm like, oh, this is going to be so cool. But the reality began to set in as I started texting some of my teammates. They had to bring me back down to earth because they were like, Betsy, that's my nickname up there. Don't make fun of me. Betsy, the reality is we're Division III athletes in the middle of Western Massachusetts. Likelihood of any of us getting a single NIL deal is slim to none. So that brought me back down to earth a little bit. And I'm kind of watching from the sidelines. I'm just like, dang, like I'm seeing Bryce Young get all these things. I'm seeing, the Caitlin Clarks and the Caleb Williams of the world get all these things. And I'm just kind of bummed because I'm like, I think I'm a pretty talented individual. I think I'd be a pretty good asset for some of these brands. So it was sort of a perspective shift in January when I got my first NIL deal. I was fortunate enough for them to reach out to me, matter of fact. And it was this company called Lifestyle Bands. They DM'd me on Instagram, 2,500 followers at the time, private Instagram. And they're like, would you be interested in partnering with us and joining our NIL athlete cohort? I'm sitting there thinking, what the heck do they want with me at the time? One career reception, private Instagram account, not a big following. But that was sort of my in, and I just kind of took it and expanded it from there. So that's the beginning to my story, and obviously it's been quite a successful one, I'd say.
I want to talk a bit about your like decision-making process when you were pursuing NIL deals. I assume you were probably doing a bunch of brand outreach. Can you talk a little bit about your criteria or like requirements, like making sure that a brand aligns with your personal brand?
So when it came to, so I got my first deal, right? And I'm kind of looking around, I'm kind of doing a little research, doing a little reconnaissance. And when my searches were along the lines of, okay, who are D3 athletes partnering with? Search came back empty. There was really no market for Division III athletes in NIL. So I kind of said to myself, okay, first of all, I want to be the change that I want to see. I want to be that athlete that when someone Googles Division III athlete success in NIL, I want me to come up. And so I kind of said to myself, okay, I have to begin looking and tailoring the search, not to who are D3 athletes partnering with, but rather who are athletes in general partnering with. NIL was still pretty new on the market, I'd say. I mean, it was only 6 months had passed since the legislation was approved. So I had to begin looking at, who are brands currently working with, who are athletes currently working with, and kind of begin thinking, okay, I don't have 100,000 followers. I'm not a 1,000-yard, 10 touchdown a year type guy. So how can I find brands that are maybe working with lower level athletes and that maybe don't have as high as prerequisites for the type of athletes that they can work with? It was sort of like a beggars can't be choosers approach. I at one point, I think I was sending out probably 15-ish emails a day just to all these brands all over the place. And I did get a lot of no's, but the ones who told me yes, I made sure I gave my all to. And so it is equally important to do your due diligence. I did a lot of research on prospective partners and what they're doing. I have actually two lawyers as parents, so it's kind of fortunate to have that type of legal counsel in my corner. So they really helped me in that process. Contract reviewing, going over, okay, let's look a little background on these brands, and they've got the type of resources that they do this for a living. They have to do background checks on people for a living. So it was really helpful. They were extremely instrumental in my process, but it was all about who is even looking to partner with a Division III athlete who has one career reception, who has 2,500 Instagram followers. And as I began getting more brands and tailoring more partnerships, obviously the following began to increase a little bit, notoriety began to increase a little bit, and that's when more brands began reaching out to me. First deal, they reached out to me. Deals probably 1 through like 10, I reached out to them, but then there was a little bit of a reciprocal process, I'd say, or a trading off process where it'd be like, I reach out, they reach out, I reach out. It was a lot of fun, I could tell you that, at its peak. But now that I'm retired, obviously a lot of my partnerships have come to a close. But you never know. Maybe my career isn't over here. I'd say definitely professionally, I've learned a lot. I've learned that the earlier you begin sort of thinking about what am I going to be doing after college? What am I going to be doing after my time as an athlete comes to a close? I've learned perspective is one thing that has definitely shifted a little bit. Equally, I've learned how to, I'd say, being more cognizant on social media. I see a lot of people posting. I mean, it's spring break right now. A lot of people are posting a lot of chaotic videos and photos, and that stuff can come back to bite you in the long run. You never know. You might be at a job application, a job interview, and they pull up one of your photos from spring break 2024. It's probably something that you don't want to have brought up. So just being cognizant of what I post on social media, the type of, I guess, disposition that I have and the type of brand and the type of message that I want the Jack Betts brand to have. Developing these professional relationships, establishing this professional network, honing these skills that are going to be applicable 5, 10, 15 years down the line. I think these are all things that I've taken away from my time in NIL. And I do call it sort of an entrepreneurial incubator because every single day I am talking to CEOs, entrepreneurs, COOs, all these higher ups in these businesses that, while at the time I was a collegiate athlete, you never know down the line. Maybe I'm looking for a job. Maybe I slide my resume into one of these companies and they see the type of expertise and the type of skills that I have mastered via marketing, via social media. And they're like, you know what, Jack, we partnered with you way back when. Now we want to bring you on board as one of our own. So you never know. I attribute a lot of my growing up and my maturity to my time in NIL. As I mentioned, every single day I'm having these professional conversations and I'm hopping on Zoom calls and I'm listening in on different conversations. But I don't know, I think you grow up fast and you learn a lot of things about yourself and equally a lot of life lessons. Number one being just because you get told no doesn't mean it's going to be the end of the world. If I accepted that first no after I reached out to a brand, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you right now. I probably wouldn't be at SMU. I wouldn't have the type of success and the type of professional network that I have that I do right now. So sometimes all it takes is one step.
I want to talk about the Make Your Own Legacy Academy. I think that was really cool when I went on your website. Can you talk about just why you started that brand or company and why create it specifically for smaller market athletes?
The Make Your Own Legacy Academy is one of my passion projects that is really just the manifestation of a lot of my core values. A lot of my core values being, the importance of education, helping others, and sort of making your own legacy. I think the word legacy is extremely powerful in itself, because once you leave Earth, that's it, you're done. So while you're sitting on your deathbed, you're going to begin thinking back about all the impact that you've had, the way that you've helped other people in your life, and maybe the lack of, the things that you wanted to do, and maybe the things you didn't get to do. So the Make Your Own Legacy Academy is a first of its kind NIL education service that specifically focuses on the smaller market athlete, the underserved athlete whose school doesn't have the type of resources that the Alabamas or the Ohio States of the world has. I created it because as I began to find success for myself, as my brand began to grow, as I got more notoriety to my name, I had a lot of Division III athletes, Division II athletes, NAIA, JUCO, lower Division I athletes reaching out to me, asking me for help, asking me for advice, asking me for industry tips and secrets. And so when I said to myself, okay, I've got these athletes reaching out to me who are coming from similar situations. It's not a diss to Amherst. We just don't have the resources to be dishing out like this. We don't have a collective. We don't have multi-billion-dollar donors who are donating specifically to the football program. And so I wanted to be the change that I wanted to see in the world yet again. I founded the Make Your Own Legacy Academy in the summer of 2022, and our initial class of 21 athletes, an ode to the number I wear on the field. And we've just grown exponentially. And right now we're sitting at around 65, 66-ish athletes from all across the country, competing at every single level of NCAA competition across 10 varsity sports, I want to say. And so it's just been an absolute privilege to sit down with these athletes and help them build their brands, help them begin tallying NIL deals, help them establish a professional network. Because the reality is, we have two athletes who are playing professionally. Ellis Merriweather, former UMass running back, he's with the Green Bay Packers right now. And Silent Rain Espinoza, former University of Washington softball player, she's playing professional softball. So while those might be the outliers, the vast majority of us are not going to be playing our sport professionally. And so it's important that we begin developing these skills and establishing this professional network once our playing days are over.
And can you talk a little bit, expand about like what skills and lessons that the MYOL, can I say it like that, teach these athletes to help them succeed with NIL and possibly beyond?
100%. So the Make Your Own Legacy Academy focuses on really the basics of NIL, the brands that you need to begin looking for, that cold outreach approach, the negotiation process, content creation, all under the umbrella that, like I just said, we need to start as early as possible with establishing a professional network and developing these skills that are going to help us sometime down the line. We obviously my area of expertise is NIL, but in the spring of last year, we began hosting these things called legacy lessons, in which I bring in people from my professional network who can speak on things that are outside of my expertise. For example, we brought in Timothy F. Bryson, who is just a phenomenal individual. He's the former head of education at MYOL. Not entirely sure where he is right now. Matter of fact, I need to reconnect with him. But he came in and did an entire session just all about the importance of LinkedIn. And how you can not only leverage that for NIL deals, but also leverage that for post-athletic, and once you graduate, your post-athletic endeavors. And we also brought in Kirby Porter, who is just a fantastic mind, former Harvard women's basketball player, who is really on the front line of this creator, entrepreneur, like movement. And she came in and spoke about that athlete to entrepreneur transition, which a lot of the athletes within the academy, they wouldn't be in here if they didn't have entrepreneurial, aspirations. And so when she came in and spoke about that, it's just so illuminating to see how many former athletes are really like movers and shakers in the business world, how many athletes are entrepreneurs. And we are taking notes as current entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs. We're taking notes from some of the best in the business. So the Academy does offer a wide range of education, and I'm sure we'll be expanding sometime soon. But for right now, I'm really happy with where we're standing, and I'm just so grateful to be involved in so many athletes' lives.
We've been talking for like 15, 20 minutes, and I can tell like your drive, your hunger for this.
Thank you
And
very much.
just like pure like wanting to help other people. And so kind of transitioning, you won the NIL Summit Hustle Award, and I can really tell why. And you attended it twice. Oh, there it is. Beautiful. You attended it twice, once in 2022 and once last year. Can you just take me into like what the NIL Summit was like?
It was, I'd like to say it's a once in a lifetime experience, but of course I went twice. Um, I the NIL Summit entered my radar way back when. It must have been winter of 2022. And it was something that I'd never seen before. I immediately reached out to my athletic department because they had these applications for student athlete delegates, and I'm like, I mean, there's who else would be more equipped to represent Amherst at the inaugural NIL Summit? So sat down with my athletic department. They said, absolutely, we'd love to send you. Sent me there, and I remember walking around and introducing myself to all of these brilliant minds in the business of NIL. And it really was just this melting pot of so many individuals who were so heavily involved in NIL, whether it be representatives from brands, athletes themselves, middlemen, people who do all the negotiations and everything in the middle. It was just such a wonderful experience going that first year. And I remember introducing myself. I'm like, hi, Jack Betts, Amherst College football. And they're like, Amherst? What division is that in? And I'm like, oh, it's a Division III school. And when I tell you, I wish I could frame the look on everybody's faces every time I said Division III, because none of them had any idea NIL was even a thing at the Division III level. And that's where I took it. I'm like, okay, year one, this was a lot of fun. Had a great time. My best friend Raekwon Smith, who's the king of NIL, he brought home the inaugural Hustle Award. And so I kind of left. And when I was on the airplane, I said two things. Number one, when I come back next year, I'm going to be speaking on a panel. And lo and behold, I spoke on Invesco QQQ's panel. And number two, I'm going to be nominated for, and I'm going to take home an award. Fast forward to 2023, last year's NIL Summit was even more fun. I was even more engaged, obviously, as a speaker on a panel, but also a nominee and the winner of the 2023 Hustle Award. It was just such a unique experience where I had all these people coming up to me and just giving their respects and telling me how much of an inspiration I am, not only to Division III athletes, but also to the Division I athletes. They've got all of these resources at their disposal, and they began kind of saying to themselves, like, gosh, what am I doing? Like, am I even doing this right? Am I taking advantage of it? Am I doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing? So just being there and having so many people come up to me and just tell me how inspirational I am and how much of a positive impact I'm having on the current NIL landscape. I might be fumbling over myself just because that's how passionate I was and how grateful I was just to experience something like that. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be attending again this year. I'd love to, but obviously I'm not in the space to be a student athlete delegate for Amherst, given that I have graduated from there, and I'm not necessarily in the space to be a student athlete delegate for SMU, as I am not a student athlete there. So who knows, maybe I'll get a text sometime in the next month or so inviting me back. But if my time there has come to a close, I have nothing but positive things to say about it.
What do you attribute your success you've at your time at Amherst has amassed over 35 NIL deals? You got the Hustle Award, creating a successful company like Make Your Own Legacy, literally making a legacy and helping other student athletes. What do you attribute your success to? I can tell your work ethic, your drive. Where did that
Um, I have to attribute my success to my upbringing and my parents, and specifically my mother. Both my parents are lawyers, so they are workaholics. It seems like they're on the clock all the time. We'll be downstairs either eating dinner or just watching television every single night. And it seems like my parents always have some sort of phone call going on, or they've got to tie into a conference call, or they've got to get a document out. And I think the inspiration of that, I mean, they're quite successful. They've have like over 60 plus years of combined experience in the field of law, and just that day in, day out, regardless of where they currently stand, they know that their work's not done, and they're never going to be satisfied. And I think that's where I get a lot of my I attribute a lot of my success to, and I attribute a lot of my characteristics to, is that seeing that almost every single day, listening in on their phone calls, seeing how they carry themselves in front of their clients. So I'm extremely grateful for the way that they brought me up. Community service was something that was extremely was hammered into me from a young age. My parents are very involved in the community service landscape here in Dallas. And so that's where that service comes from. Education equally. Both my parents went, my mother went to SMU, funny enough. So, go ponies, pony up. And then my father went to Stanford. And so going to very impressive academic institutions and going to law school, it's just something that's been instituted in me from day one. And so I attribute all of my success to my parents. I would not be here today without the sacrifices that they've made. I would not be here today without them taking a chance because I'm actually adopted on a kid from Seattle, Washington, and adopting a kid from halfway across the country. So that's who I attribute my success to. Definitely my folks.
Shout out parents, mom and dad. We love them. What's next for you?
Amen.
What are your plans or goals for yourself and for the Make Your Own Legacy Academy? Whatever else you have planned.
I've been asked this question several times in the last month, I'd say, whether it be other podcasts that I've hopped on or just some, going to meet some folks for coffee. I want the Make Your Own Legacy Academy to continue to service as many athletes as we possibly can. I want to begin expanding it. I want to begin scaling it. I have so many brilliant plans in mind that it's all about taking that first step. I've got it to this point. Now, how am I going to take it? Now, how am I going to expand it? How am I going to scale it? It's going to take a lot of hard work. And granted that I was already a student athlete and managing a business and managing NIL deals and balancing education and athletics. So it's nothing that I haven't done before, but I don't know. I have a lot of great aspirations, obviously, not only for the Make Your Own Legacy Academy, but also for my career as I begin my time at SMU. So we'll just have to see. The good thing is I've got a lot of options and I'm keeping an open mind for anything that comes my way. But while I'm here in Dallas, I've been sort of helping out various events across the Metroplex. I've been helping out the Dallas Open, which was the tennis tournament, ATP 250, actually. I helped at the East-West Shrine Bowl just this past weekend. I was out in Fort Worth for the AAC men's basketball tournament. And now I'm trying to sort of wiggle my way into possibly helping out at March Madness because we're hosting a South Regional. So that's what I've been up to this spring. And I know that the summer and the fall have a lot of great things in store. I'm actually going to be speaking at my high school coming up next week, as well as speaking on my high school alumni panel at Alumni Weekend, which is crazy to think I'm 5 years out from ESD. So shout out the Eagles. But I don't know. I'm just kind of taking things as they come. And I know that I don't know. I'm just trying to make my own legacy. I don't know.
Yeah. So finally, lastly, to close out everything, what advice do you have for athletes who are curious about NIL or unsure of it, like how they can get started?
When athletes come to me and they tell me, I want to get into NIL, but I don't know where to start, my number one piece of advice is the scariest step is always going to be the first one. It brings me back to this old adage that I can't remember who said it or where I saw it, but you can either let something be like a 1 day type thing, or you can let it be a day one type thing. Either you let it sit there in the ether and float around in your brain, or you get it started and you say, what the heck, I'm going to start doing it right now. I think it's extremely important to be your own advocate. I think it's extremely important to be proactive. Certainly, if you're a Division III athlete and don't have things already readily available at your school, and equally, one of the things I struggled the most with was worrying about the perception of others, worrying about the opinions of others, worrying about the type of hate comments. I have plenty of them. The type of hate comments that I'm going to be getting on whatever content that I post. And at the end of the day, the only opinion that really matters is the opinion of that person that you look in the mirror and see every single night, and your mother. I'll include that in there too. But yeah, it's all about just being confident in yourself, being confident in your abilities, not living for anybody else, and just taking that first step. Because had I not taken that first step, had I not responded to that DM, had I not accepted that proposition that Lifestyle Bands put forth, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you today. So it's just all about that snowball effect, and it's just all about being open to things that you're possibly scared of, or getting out of your comfort zone. As I mentioned, going from Texas to Amherst wasn't an easy transition, but I wouldn't be the person I am today without my time at Amherst College. And just it's not about the destination, but it's all about the journey. And so that's why I'm here today.
Thank you so much, Jack. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Katie.